Linda Pinizzotto. She's not your typical realtor. She's your real estate counselor, teacher, and advisor. Whether it's a house, townhome, or condo, when you're ready, she's your negotiator. With 34 years of experience, Linda guarantees that you have the real estate knowledge you need to make the right decisions. Call Linda Pinizzotto at Sutton Group Quantum Realty, 416-561-7373, or visit her at lindapinizzotto.com.
Hello there, it's Linda Pinizzotto of the Condo Expert, and today we are going to deal with something completely different. Can you just imagine, you're a condo owner or you're an occupant, meaning you are a tenant in the condo building. Maybe you're on the board of directors or maybe you're a property manager, and all of a sudden, you're looking around and you're thinking, hey, you know what, maybe our condo building should have an inspection done. Just, with respect to the building, the underground, common elements, whether they're on the main floor, up on the rooftops. You could take a look at your windows. Maybe you just want to find out, something similar to what a home inspection would do, but therefore it's a condominium inspection. The big difference is today we're going to talk about a company, and we also have Fillip Sobotka, who is involved with FTD Highrise Inspections Incorporated. Now, why is this different? It's interesting. Before I introduce Fillip, I want to talk about Sam, because Sam is a robot, and Sam does inspections for FTD Highrise Inspections Incorporated. Now, isn't that something different? You talk about going into 2013 with whole new ideas and having a full 3D model of your entire building. So I'd like to introduce Fillip Sobotka. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Fillip.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Oh, well, I'm excited about your product. That sounds really fascinating. I was looking at your website. If anybody and listeners out there want to come along with us, so we don't get complicated on you, it's F for Frank, so FTDHIGHRISE.com. So that's FTDHighrise.com. So tell me, Fillip, how long has your company been around?
Technically, on paper, we've been around since 2008, but we've been pretty much going full bore with it for a couple of years now. We're really excited. We think it's a new way of conducting building envelope inspections, like you mentioned.
Yeah, no, that sounds amazing. So tell me, I'm sure the audience, everybody wants to know Sam. I think of, when we hear robots, maybe you can give me a little bit of an intro of how that actually works.
Sure. Well, I can give you some background first on how the idea came about.
Oh, perfect.
So my father has a construction company. We do some caulking of exterior high-rise buildings. And he was on site one day. He saw an engineer doing an inspection on a swing stage.
And what is a swing stage?
So a swing stage is a platform you see on the side of a building that workers, caulking installers, or window washers use to do their work on the outside of the building. It's a hanging platform pretty much on the side of the building.
Well, when you talk about caulking, all of a sudden it draws to attention, because I think caulking was actually one of the big issues with all the falling glass and so on. I think that they had spoken about that. Not just breaking the glass, but actually what's holding the glass in place.
Yeah, that was one of the things.
Right.
A lot of the glass was with the actual manufacturer of the glass as well, so that had something to do with it as well. But the caulking is a big issue in the condo industry. It's the source of many leaks, which is a big problem with high-rises, so...
Oh, for sure. And energy consumption,
Exactly.
Yeah,
yep, that's
definitely
the big buzzword
deficiencies
these days.
as far as that. So, so carry on. You were giving me the rundown, or giving us the rundown.
So the rundown is the engineer's looking on the building, and he can't see around the corner of the building. So he duct taped his digital camera to the end of a broomstick and leaned across and took a picture of the building. So that got the idea going in my dad's head to say, hey, it's 2013. There's got to be a better way to do this than hanging people off the side of a building. So fast forward, I finished school and, got the green light from Dad to say, okay, let's go at this. Let's invest some money into this and let's see what we can do. So we hired an engineering firm to help us build Sam. We helped them along with the production and asking them what we want. And now we have Sam, who climbs up and down wires that are situated alongside the building. and he takes images as he goes along. So the idea being we capture more of the building than traditional inspections, therefore giving you a greater idea of, the problems with your building, or if it's performing well, that too.
Right. Well, I mean, it's there's going to be a lot of places that the human eye really couldn't even see. So this is actually, they can zero into any particular aspect as well.
Yep.
So it has magnifying capabilities and, that kind of thing.
Yep. There's that,
Right.
which is the big aspect is we cover a lot more, not just pick and choose areas. And the issues with many of these inspections, when an engineer does go on site, yes, they are trained. Yes, they are educated. They're nice people. But the problem is it's subjective. Right? They go with binoculars or they visit certain areas potentially, and they choose what they see. Our system is unbiased. We don't pick and choose what we see. What the camera sees is what it sees. And then the images can be interpreted or inspected by engineers. So it gives them a whole scope of the building as opposed to bits and pieces. And then you run into issues of, missing certain things, having people come back. We have many people that complain about engineers having to come in year after year finding new and new leaks. Well, why not do it once and find all your leaks, and then at least you know what the situation is and you can rectify it accordingly.
Well, this sounds like something that would be absolutely perfect on a condo building right after occupancy stages, before the building actually gets registered and belongs, then turns over the documents to the new owners. Because that would be an amazing way. A lot of times board of directors, they will depend on the engineering reports and so on. But there's an awful lot of deficiencies that show up within the first year. So it sounds like this kind of a inspection would be ideal.
You're exactly right. That's one of our target markets is the performance audit, it's called. So
Yes.
There's an engineering firm when a building is constructed that deals with the construction aspect of it. And then there's a third party, and I use that term loosely, that comes in and inspects the final product before the building is actually turned over. And in that, there's a little bit of background that you have to understand. When there are deficiencies, for specifically with Terrion, and we're kind of going forward, they have to pinpoint the locations of these issues, which is what our system does. If there's an issue on the fifth floor on which drop, you can't just generally say, some of the windows have bad caulking. You have to specifically say this location, this floor is where work needs to be done. So in that respect, our system is ideal for that, where we can do the whole thing, the whole building, capture everything, and then you will find where your deficiencies are and have the builder rectify them.
Well, exactly. And I think it's interesting because where Terrion works is the way it works is that if deficiencies in a building are found out during the occupancy stages, Terrion warranties already kick in at that point. People don't realize that. They actually think that it has to start on the day that the building registers. But that's actually not true. So people, I guess people that are putting their names in for boards or even owners in the building could actually keep really well aware of things that are happening in the building. And maybe you could already have that extra protection just by having Sam go through the building and make sure that those things are covered before you start getting into where you're turning over all the cash.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That
makes a lot more sense, that's for sure. Well, getting an edge on any of these type of things is important. So, you know what? I think, when you're talking about, so are we, size-wise? So is the robot, maybe describe it? Obviously, it has picture-taking capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
What about in dark areas? Is it fielded with lights or so on to be able to capture it?
Yeah, we have, it can't be too dark. The camera has a flash capability, obviously, so it lights up darker areas. But the size of the robot, it's roughly 30 kilograms. Size of a large backpack, we'll call it.
Really?
Yeah, so it's not
Wow.
very big. The
Yeah.
rigging system is a little more complicated. We have a mobile crane, we can call it. So that was designed by the folks that helped design the CN Tower Skywalk. They were involved in that, and they helped us with our rigging. So our rigging, think of it as a mobile crane that's mobilized on the roof, and it has wheels. So we set up the rigging. The wires get sent down, the same wires that the robot travels on, and we do a drop, and we just simply push the riggings across 10 feet and repeat the process. So it's kind of like a step-by-step system where we can map out and grid the entire building.
So, do you find that a lot of times, if I had to say to you, okay, what area seems to be the largest area of concern? Would that be like down in the undergrounds, where the foundation walls are? Are we talking more within around the framing of the exterior where windows and ledges and that type of thing? Or maybe on rooftops, maybe where the central heating and air conditioning systems are? Like what would be sort of a key area that you always seem to find that needs the most amount of diligence?
Typically windows with the caulking and
Yes.
and the venting. We've had a lot of clients with older buildings, not necessarily new ones.
Yeah.
Bricks, so spalling and cracking, and pieces of brick actually falling down the side of the building. So that's another thing where we can localize the problem, right? You don't have an engineer come on site and view the building as a whole and say roughly this much to do the work. We actually pinpoint the areas, and you can literally see how many bricks you need to replace on a specific drop. So it's great for contractors and people paying for the work because they have a greater idea of, how much work is actually involved. There's no surprises later because we find many times, they have a contractor come in or an engineer writes the specs to say, okay, well, this many bricks, and let's say it's $100,000. So the contractor comes in, figures, okay, it's going to be $100,000. He gets on the stage or on the side of the building and notices, wait a second, there's a lot more work here, and that's what we also provide is more cost certainty. So your budget is more accurate because now okay, you're actually replacing this many bricks and it's going to cost this much, and you're reducing that extra cost that you're not, taking into account of your budget and all those things. So.
Well, that's a really good point because there's an awful lot of older buildings now, which of course board of directors have to review the reserve fund and the reserve fund studies. And they need to take a look at upgrading, in particularly their windows. So, which means that, a lot of times they're pretty much at the liberty of either the contractor or even for that matter, the property manager that they have on site, because they're requesting quotes to come in. But in all frankness, I guess, depending on the direction, now this is an interesting one because I know it happens on houses. If you have a home and your roof is starting to fail on you, say on the front, and that's because you're facing south and, the sun rises in the east, it sets in the west. So therefore, the front of your rooftop is getting more exposure to the sun. So therefore, it could deteriorate a lot quicker. Now, in the case of condominium buildings, depending on where the exposure is, you may have more deterioration on one side than you could on the other. So even though you do have the ability at that point to access your reserve fund and make some changes, depending on what the quotes are coming back at, by having your kind of services, I think the board would have a better idea of what the actual condition of the windows would be and whether or not there is a difference between the two because of exposure and how much one has deteriorated compared to the other. Would that make sense? I mean,
yeah.
It seems to me as if it could be an incredible cost-saving factor to be able to zero into some of these deficiencies or these reserve fund items that need replacement. You could save a corporation an awful lot of money.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The savings is twofold. One, we don't really use engineers with our system because they're expensive, like I mentioned before, and we cover the whole building. So if you're thinking about phasing out your work, that's the big aspect. Like you said, certain areas, mostly east sides, the exposure are, typically have worse condition than other sides of the building. So you can go and phase out your project. If you are replacing your windows, most people don't have the funding to replace all the windows at once. They can phase it out. Say, okay, well, let's start with this side because clearly from the images that we've received, this is the major problem area. And, start it that way. So that's a cost savings because you can defer the costs. And, our system is relatively inexpensive when compared to engineering firms because an engineering firm would never go and say, yeah, we're going to do drops in every single drop of your building. They argue that it's not required, but it's more so because it's unfeasible with the current methods, right?
Right, exactly. So, there it is. It's an open avenue to getting more education, more information about some deficiencies that you have in your building, and a better way to actually inspect it and obtain the information before you go out and get quotes that may be overinflated because you may not need as much work as you think you do. You're listening to Linda Pinizzotto on the Condo Expert, and today I'm talking to Fillip Sobotka from FTD Highrise Inspections. We'll be right back.
Linda Pinizzotto. She's not your typical realtor. She's your real estate counselor, teacher, and advisor. Whether it's a house, townhome, or condo, when you're ready, she's your negotiator. With 34 years of experience, Linda guarantees that you have the real estate knowledge you need to make the right decisions. Call Linda Pinizzotto at Sutton Group Quantum Realty, 416-561-7373, or visit her at lindapinizzotto.com.
You're listening to Linda Pinizzotto of the Condo Expert. You have a wonderful day. We'll talk to you next time.